I used to think betrayal was something that happened to other people, something you read about on Reddit revenge stories, or whispered about at the bar after a couple Bud Lights. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting at my kitchen table in Dallas, Texas, wondering why my wife's phone suddenly needed a passcode after 15 years of marriage. Life used to feel simple. We had a 2-story brick house in the suburbs, a backyard big enough for weekend barbecues, and a circle of friends who knew us as the couple that never missed Friday night football. My wife, Sarah, was the one everyone called dependable. My brother, Mark, was the kind of guy people trusted with house keys when they went on vacation. And my kids, 2 teenagers, were supposed to be the ones who looked up to me. But lately, something had shifted. It started small. Sarah would say she was running to Target, yet come back 3 hours later without a single shopping bag. She'd get a text, smile to herself, then tilt the screen away if I walked past. My brother began dropping by more often, helping fix the gutters, offering to mow the lawn, even joining us for dinners uninvited. At first, I thought it was just family being family. But when I walked in one evening to see Sarah laughing at one of his jokes, her hand brushing his arm in that too familiar way, my gut twisted. The worst part wasn't even that moment. It was when my son caught me looking and said quickly, "Dad, Uncle Mark was just helping Mom with the faucet earlier. It's no big deal." His voice was too rehearsed, too defensive. From that night on, I started noticing little things everywhere. One Saturday morning, I found a crumpled motel receipt shoved under the passenger seat of my wife's SUV. The name of the place was burned into my brain. The Lone Star Inn, a cheap roadside spot just off I-35. At first, I told myself it couldn't be hers. Maybe she loaned the car to a friend. Maybe it blew in from the parking lot, but then I caught a faint trace of her perfume lingering in my brother's truck when he pulled into the driveway one Sunday. It wasn't a cheap scent. It was that vanilla amber bottle I bought her for Christmas last year. Every sign pointed to something I didn't want to face. I tried to push it down, to drown it out with work and routine. We'd still go to Olive Garden on Fridays like nothing was wrong. I'd twirl the endless pasta bowl on my fork while she scrolled through her phone under the table. Mark would crack jokes about the Cowboys losing again, and my daughter would defend him like he was some kind of celebrity. The whole family felt like they were in on something I wasn't. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to Sarah's steady breathing beside me, and wonder if she was dreaming of him. My mind would circle back to the kids. Why did they look at me with pity, as if I were the outsider in my own home? One evening, when Sarah said she was running out to pick up milk, I decided to test her. I offered to go instead, keys already in hand. She froze for half a second, just long enough for me to catch it, before laughing it off and insisting she wanted a quick drive alone. She came back an hour later with one half-empty carton of milk, sweat beading her forehead even though it was cool outside. By then, I knew. I just didn't have proof strong enough to shatter the facade. The real dagger came the night I overheard my daughter whispering to Sarah in the hallway, "Don't worry, Mom. Dad doesn't suspect a thing. We'll cover for you." I sat there in the dark, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. My own children, blood of my blood, were helping her hide something. Whether they knew the full truth or just thought they were protecting her from marital arguments didn't matter. They weren't standing with me. That night, I drove to a gas station a few blocks away and parked under the buzzing fluorescent lights. I stared at the cracked concrete, listening to the hiss of the soda machine, and made a decision. No more pretending, no more brushing it off. I was going to find out the truth, even if it broke me. I went home, slipped into bed beside Sarah, and stared at the shadows on the ceiling until dawn. She stirred once, mumbling something about a busy day tomorrow, and rolled away from me. I whispered to myself, so soft no one could hear, "I know something's going on, and I'm going to prove it." The fan blades kept spinning, the night kept dragging on, and in that stillness, I felt the last piece of trust between us finally snap. The night I decided to follow her, Dallas felt like it was holding its breath. The air sat warm and heavy, the kind that sticks to your shirt collar even after sunset, and the crickets out by the fence sang like they knew something I didn't. Sarah called out from the doorway around 8:07 p.m., keys in hand, purse slung over her shoulder. "Running to Kroger, we're out of eggs." She said it breezy, eyes skipping off mine like pebbles across a pond. The kids glanced up from the couch and then looked away too quickly. My son muted the TV, Cowboys preseason highlights, and said, "We'll clean the kitchen, Dad." It sounded scripted, like a line they'd practiced, like the rehearsals before the show. I waited a minute, maybe 2, then slid my own keys off the hook. The Ford F-150 coughed to life, the check engine light blinking like an old wound I kept ignoring. I killed my headlights as I rolled down the street, enough distance to keep her taillights in view without making it obvious. She took Greenville down past the old movie theater, skipped the Kroger entirely, and hopped on I-35 like she'd done it 100 times before, my heart hammered in a slow, rage-filled drumbeat. Every merge, every exit, her blinker flashed at the last second like she hadn't decided until the moment demanded it. Or maybe she'd decided long ago and I was just now catching up. Just before 8:41, she took the frontage road by a run-down strip of pawn shops and payday loan places, the kind of stretch where the neon signs burn too hot, and the parking lots tell stories that never get reported. Then I saw it again, the Lone Star Inn. The red letters were half burnt out, the star tilted like it had given up on standing straight. I pulled into the Whataburger lot across the street and parked nose out, pretending to scroll my phone while I watched the motel's office window throw a rectangle of light onto cracked concrete. I could smell the grease and salt from the fryer every time the doors swished open. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down twice before I opened the camera. At 8:47:13 p.m., Sarah's SUV glided into the far corner of the lot, the spot by the ice machine. She didn't even hesitate. She stepped out, pulled her hair into a quick ponytail, and checked her phone. Then a truck rolled in from the opposite entrance. The same charcoal gray Silverado my brother drove, the same dent in the rear bumper from when he backed into Mom's mailbox 3 Thanksgivings ago. It parked only 2 spaces down from her. He stepped out, hat low, like a kid playing dress-up as a man who doesn't care if he gets recognized. I felt my ribs draw tight against my lungs. I lifted the phone, zoomed in, and watched them fall into the same orbit, easy and practiced, like 2 people who'd done this dance for months. She said something that made him smile, that sideways grin he used to flash when we were teenagers and he had a secret candy bar stashed in his backpack. He reached for her elbow. She didn't flinch. They walked to the office together like a couple checking in with a reservation. The night pressed in close. I sat there and watched the timestamp blink forward while the office clerk slid a key card under the glass. At 8:52, they disappeared down the first-floor hall. I took a photo of the SUV, a photo of the truck, a photo of the door to room 107, the number stenciled crooked and peeling. My hand shook so badly I propped the phone on the steering wheel to steady it, then took 3 more for good measure. Geotag on, location services on, metadata like a net around a fish. I don't know how long I stared at the glow of that room's curtains, the thin beige fabric swallowing and releasing the flicker of a cheap TV. The minutes oozed by. At 9:15, I texted my son, "Everything okay?" He answered instantly, too instantly. "Yep, Mom at Kroger. Need anything?" I swallowed, watched the neon W of the Whataburger sign blink, blink, blink. I typed, "No, be home by 10. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, like we were 2 strangers trying to keep a conversation from dying. I wanted to storm over there, pound on the door, drag them into the parking lot under the security camera, and make the night record my dignity-breaking. But I stayed where I was, palms flat on my thighs, breathing like a man learning how to do it for the first time. I thought about weddings and vows, and the day my brother helped me move a broken dryer down 3 flights of apartment stairs. I thought about every backyard barbecue where he flipped burgers while my wife ran beers out to us, and how I never noticed that his hand always seemed to find hers at the cooler, casual and hidden by laughter. Betrayal doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. It drifts in like humidity until your bones feel wet. At 9:38, I crossed the street like any other late-night customer. I bought a vanilla shake and a bag of fries I didn't taste. I asked the Whataburger kid if the motel had cameras pointing toward the lot. He shrugged. "Dude, that place? They got cameras pointed at the cameras so they can blame the cameras when the cameras break." I laughed once, short and broken, because it was either that or sink into the tile and never get up. Back in the truck, I opened my banking app. 2 charges this month labeled Lone Star Inn, each under $100, each on nights Sarah said she was running errands. I screenshotted them, lined them up like bullets on a table, dated and stamped. I opened the photo roll and created an album, August, proof. Then I added the motel photos, the license plates, a zoomed-in shot of my brother's work ID still clipped to his visor. I told myself I was just documenting the crime scene of a heart, that one day when I questioned my memory, I'd have numbers and pixels to keep me grounded. They came out at 10:12. The door opened and the hallway vomited out the TV's blue light like a secret. She stepped out first, hair looser now, face calmer than mine would ever be again. He followed, checking the lot with a quick scan I recognized from high school fights in the parking lot. Mark always did a look-over before he threw a punch. They didn't touch, not here, not where it could be seen. But they walked with that nearness that makes skin feel like a magnet. Two bodies remembering the lie they always planned to tell. I recorded the whole walk on my phone, no zoom now, letting them fill the frame, breathing shallow so the mic wouldn't pick up the sound of my life tearing. They drove off separately. She turned right toward home. He turned left toward the highway. I let them disappear, then started the truck and followed the path that made me hate every mailbox on our street. I parked 2 houses down, killed the lights, and watched my house glow like a lantern someone else had hung for a party I wasn't invited to. Inside, the kitchen smelled like the lemon cleaner my daughter uses when she wants the room to look like she's been responsible. She was at the sink, sleeves pushed up, wrists pink from hot water. My son leaned against the island, scrolling his phone. "Hey, Dad," he said, casual, like nothing in the world could be wrong. "Mom just texted. Kroger was packed. She'll be back soon." He wouldn't meet my eyes. He flipped his phone over, face down on the granite, the universal sign of a conversation you don't want spilling into the light. At 10:27, the garage door groaned. Sarah walked in holding a plastic bag with a single dozen eggs and a pack of gum. She smiled, soft and practiced. They were out of the large cartons, she said, and kissed my cheek like a neighbor. The gum rattled in the bag. My son exhaled. My daughter shut off the faucet and asked if I wanted tea. Everyone moved around the lie like furniture they had learned to navigate in the dark. I went to the bedroom and shut the door without locking it. I laid the phone on the dresser and stared at the album I'd made. The motel lot under bad light, the receipt, the dented bumper, the door of room 107 until my vision doubled. Then I opened notes and started a timeline. 8:07 p.m., she leaves. 8:41, arrives Lone Star Inn. 8:47, Mark arrives. 8:52, room 107. 10:12, exit. 10:27, returns home. It looked like a police report written by the only witness who loved the defendant. Past midnight, the house finally quieted. I slipped out to the garage with the phone pressed to my chest like a confession. Dad's old tackle box sat on the shelf next to the paint cans. I pried it open and found the cheap dash cam I'd bought 2 years ago for a road trip and never installed. The little thing blinked at me like a baby bird. I spent the next 20 minutes threading its cord along the truck's windshield, tucking it into the trim, testing the angle. It recorded to a micro SD card the size of a fingernail, silently promising to see what I couldn't. At 12:34 a.m., I texted a number a buddy at work had given me months ago, and I'd refused to use. "You still do private work?" The dots appeared, then a reply. "Depends on what you need." I typed, "Discreet surveillance, 1 week, I'll pay cash." A minute later, "Meet tomorrow, 11 a.m., Oak Cliff, Cafe Del Rio, bring a photo." I stared at Sarah's contact picture, her in a white sundress on Padre Island, wind ripping her hair across her eyes, the sun making a halo of a woman I couldn't find anymore. Before I went back inside, I opened the freezer and pulled out a bag of peas. I pressed it to my chest where the ache sat like a fist. In the living room, the mantle photos watched me pass. Our wedding day, my brother as best man, the kids at the Grand Canyon with tongues dyed blue from slushies, Christmas morning chaos, wrapping paper exploding like confetti. I paused in front of the one from last 4th of July, me at the grill, Mark at my shoulder, Sarah between us, her head tilted toward him. Once I thought it looked like family, now it looked like a warning sign I never read. In bed, she rolled toward me and murmured, "You okay?" The peas sweated through their plastic bag. I said, "Yeah." My voice surprised me with how normal it sounded, a lie echoing a lie. In the darkness, I made a promise to myself so clear it felt carved. Tomorrow, I stop being the man who guesses. Tomorrow, I become the man who knows. Sunday dinners had always been sacred in our house. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, sometimes brisket if I felt ambitious, football humming low from the living room, and laughter that once filled the walls like insulation. But this Sunday wasn't about tradition, it was about revelation. I planned it with the kind of precision generals save for war. The guest list: Sarah, my wife of 15 years, Mark, my brother, my Judas, my 2 kids who had unknowingly or knowingly been enlisted as accomplices, and me, the man who had been circling the truth long enough. The day started like any other. Church in the morning, though I didn't hear a single word of Pastor Raymond's sermon. My mind was a carousel of evidence. The photos, the receipts, the timestamps logged in my phone. When Sarah sang along with the hymns, eyes closed, hand resting lightly on my arm, I thought about how easily she could lie in the house of God. My daughter leaned into her shoulder like they were inseparable. My son smirked at something Mark texted him during the final prayer. Betrayal didn't just sit in the pew beside me, it harmonized. By 4 o'clock, I had the table set. Plates spaced evenly, silverware polished, the roast filling the house with garlic and rosemary. It was the kind of meal meant to draw people close, to soften hearts. Instead, I felt like I was staging a crime scene reenactment. Sarah floated in and out of the kitchen, humming, as she set out sweet tea glasses. She wore the blue blouse I'd once said made her eyes look like a Texas summer sky. Now it only made me wonder if Mark had told her the same. At 5 sharp, his Silverado rolled up. The dented bumper caught the last of the sunlight, like a scar that refused to fade. My chest tightened, but I forced my lips into something resembling a smile when he walked through the door, carrying a 6-pack of Shiner Bock like a peace offering. He slapped me on the back. "Smells great, brother." His voice too casual, too confident. We gathered around the table. The kids chattered about school, about TikTok trends I couldn't care less about how Uncle Mark was the coolest. Sarah laughed, head tilted back, and I felt the weight of every night I'd lain awake listening to that laugh echo in my memory. Halfway through the meal, I set down my fork. The clink of metal against ceramic stopped the room. My son glanced up, mouth half open, a green bean dangling like a loose truth. "I've been keeping track of some things," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I pulled a manila folder from beneath my chair and laid it on the table, like a dealer placing his final hand. Sarah froze, her fork hovering mid-air. Mark shifted in his seat. The kids exchanged a glance that burned hotter than the roast. I opened the folder. Out slid photos. Sarah's SUV parked at the Lone Star Inn, Mark's Silverado beside it, room 107, curtain glowing blue, time-stamped, dated, receipts fluttered out, credit card charges from the same motel, signed with her name. A neat log I'd typed, listing times down to the minute. For a moment, the only sound was the ceiling fan clicking overhead. "What the hell is this?" Mark tried to laugh, but it cracked halfway out. "It's the truth," I said. Sarah's eyes filled fast, tears threatening to spill. "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I cut in. My voice was louder now, the words ricocheting around the dining room. "You, my wife, you, my brother, and you two." I turned to the kids, my chest tightening, covering for them, lying straight to my face. My daughter pushed back her chair, cheeks flushed. "Dad, stop! You're tearing the family apart." "I'm tearing it apart?" My laugh came out sharp, ugly. "I'm the one who's been lied to, made a fool of, while my own children helped keep the secret?" Sarah reached for my hand across the table. I pulled back so fast my chair screeched against the hardwood. "I can explain the perfume in his truck, explain why my son tells me you're at Kroger while you're walking into a motel, explain the way my daughter whispers in the hall, promising to cover for you." My chest heaved. "Explain how you both thought I'd never find out?" Mark slammed his palm on the table. "You don't understand. We didn't mean for this to happen." "You didn't mean?" My voice cracked. "You didn't mean to betray the man who's had your back your whole damn life? You didn't mean to spit on vows made in front of God and everyone we love?" The room erupted. My daughter sobbed, shouting that I was cruel. My son shouted louder, swearing it was just a mistake and that families were supposed to forgive. Plates rattled, silverware clattered. Sarah wept openly now, mascara streaking down her face, while Mark stared at me with something between guilt and defiance. The roast went cold on our plates. The sweet tea sat untouched, sweating rings into the wood. Somewhere outside, a neighbor's dog barked, probably at the sound of our lives shattering. I stood, chest heaving, throat raw. "I can't sit here another minute." "Where are you going?" Sarah's voice broke. "Anywhere but here." I grabbed my keys off the counter, stormed through the door, and felt the night air slam against me like a wall. My truck door slammed shut. My fingers gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles bleached white. Through the windshield, I saw shadows moving in the dining room window. My family, or whatever was left of it, still shouting, still breaking apart. When I turned the ignition, the radio clicked onto a country station. The singer's voice crooned about lost love, betrayal, whiskey on ice. I laughed once, bitter and sharp, and drove into the night, not knowing if I'd ever come back. The morning after that dinner, the silence in the house was worse than the shouting. I came back around 5 a.m., the kind of return where you hope everyone's asleep just so you don't have to face them. The kitchen still smelled faintly of garlic and cold gravy, the plates shoved into the sink like evidence no one wanted to clean. My daughter's chair sat pushed too far from the table, my son's napkin balled in a corner. I remember thinking, this was what betrayal looked like once the smoke cleared. Not knives, not blood, just a house where nobody wanted to make breakfast. By Monday, I'd already called a lawyer. His office sat on the third floor of a squat brick building near downtown Dallas, between a bail bonds shop and a vape store. He shook my hand, listened to my story, and told me flat out, document everything. Do not confront them again. Court loves paper trails. That folder I'd dropped on the dinner table, he flipped through it like a priest with a Bible, nodding at the timestamps, the receipts, the dashcam footage I'd added later. You've got enough to make this ugly, he said. The question is, how ugly do you want it? Ugly didn't begin to cover it. The divorce papers landed on Sarah's desk at her work 2 weeks later. I didn't see her when she got them, but my phone lit up with a dozen texts, each one angrier than the last. How could you? She wrote, as if I'd betrayed her. My brother called that night too, his voice dripping with wounded pride. You didn't have to drag me through this, he said. We could have kept it private. I hung up before he finished the sentence. The kids? They chose her. At least at first. My son refused to come over the first weekend I had visitation. My daughter sent one-word replies to my texts, all lowercase, fine, busy, whatever. It cut deeper than the affair itself, watching my own children treat me like the villain while their mother and uncle played house. But the truth has a way of crawling out of the dark. 3 months into the proceedings, a test landed on the judge's bench that blew everything sideways. It wasn't mine. I hadn't requested it. It came from Sarah's own attorney, probably meant to clear up questions about financial support. A DNA test. Turned out my son, the boy I'd raised, the boy who wore my name on his football jersey, wasn't mine. The room spun. My lawyer squeezed my arm. Across the courtroom, Mark sat pale. Eyes locked on the floor. Sarah wept into her hands, shaking her head like she'd just heard the news herself. The gavel hit the block, and my world split in half. In the weeks that followed, gossip spread faster than wildfire in a dry Texas summer. The neighbors whispered. Church ladies offered me pies with too much pity in their eyes. Even Pastor Raymond dropped a line about secrets rotting families from within during Sunday service. The whole town of Garland treated our scandal like it was their new favorite soap opera. I thought about revenge. I thought about burning Mark's truck to the ground, about plastering the motel photos across Facebook, about taking out a billboard on I-35 that said, "My wife slept with my brother, honk if you hate betrayal." I even drafted the ad just to see how it looked. But when the rage burned out at 3 in the morning, all I had left was exhaustion. So I chose something else. I chose peace. The divorce finalized with terms that gave her the house, gave me the truck, and split custody of my daughter 50-50. My son, Mark's son, though the papers still listed me as father, chose to stay with them. I didn't fight it. Some battles aren't worth the cost. Years later, the kids started to see it differently. My daughter, now in college, came home one Thanksgiving and sat across from me at a diner booth off Route 6. She stirred her coffee, eyes wet, and whispered, "I'm sorry I believed her over you." My son, older now, carrying Mark's smirk but not his arrogance, texted me on Father's Day. "Thanks for raising me anyway." I read it twice, then put my phone down before the tears could fog the screen. Sometimes, late at night, I drive past the Lone Star Inn. The neon still flickers, the star still leans, but the rooms are quieter now. I park across the street at Whataburger, order a vanilla shake, and remind myself that proof doesn't always bring peace. Peace is what you decide to keep when the world takes everything else. And if you ask me what I learned, that betrayal stories might get told like cheap Reddit posts or late-night bar confessions. But when it's your life, it's not entertainment, it's war, it's paperwork, it's silence at the dinner table, and if you're lucky, it's learning to walk away before revenge eats what's left of you. Funny thing is, the whole mess turned into legend in our town. Folks still nudge each other when they see me at Home Depot, like I'm the main character of some soap they can't stop streaming. The pastor even used my story as a sermon once, though he never named names. Even brothers can betray brothers, he said, but peace belongs to the one who refuses to live in bitterness. I didn't choose bitterness. I didn't choose revenge. I chose to tell my story, raw and uncut, so some poor fool out there might see the signs before he finds himself parked across from a neon motel, watching his life unravel behind a curtain. That's my closure, that's my revenge, and that's my peace.